Welcome to this episode of For Wales, See Wales. I did have to check the screen just to make sure. I never get it the right way round, you know? You'd have thought by episode 4 I'd have got it. But
I mean, See Wales for Wales does make sense.
It does, doesn't
grammatically.
it? Yes, exactly. But I'm so glad we're back.
Absolutely.
Again.
Great to be back.
We are recording this episode a little bit before we normally would record. So basically, we're beforehand. Well, you've got a lovely holiday coming up.
Yeah, I'm. I know this is going to alienate me, but I'm actually going to Antigua with my dad to watch the England and Wales cricket team play against the West Indies.
Oh, gorgeous!
It is going to be good. My dad actually. I looked at how much a ticket was. It's £7 to go to the cricket all day.
It's not £7 to go to Antigua, though, is it?
Yeah, that's how they get you.
Please don't ruin my man of the people credentials, please.
Yeah, that's what people say about you. They're like, he is a man of the people.
If the people were twats.
No, you're not. You're not. I went to the cricket once. I really enjoyed the picnic. That was lovely. I had a picnic. I had a little read on the hill for a bit while I was like in the background.
You watch any of the cricket?
No.
Picnic and
picnic
and books.
Pims.
Yeah,
also
yeah.
good. But I'm sure you'll be much more into the cricket.
I will be, me and all the other men who rarely have sex.
I thought you said really have sex.
Really?
Oh, we really have sex.
Yeah, I bet. Well,
when you do something once a year, you have to commit to it.
No,
you
absolutely.
do. You really commit. So because we're recording this a bit beforehand, there might have been some things that have happened this week that we won't be covering. Yes, but we will. Don't you worry. We will come at them.
If anything crazy happens, we could always drop in an emergency pod, sort of.
Hit that
Ed
emergency
Morgan has resigned, or Wales has gone to the moon, anything like that. We could
What
sort
will
of
be
throw
our
in there.
predictions of things,
that'd
crazy
be fun.
things that we could... Yeah, that they, a rocket launcher came from Wales.
It would be very Welsh government to do a project to the moon when lots of our kids can't read.
Yeah.
Exactly. If that happens, we've already covered it.
Yeah, maybe the answers are up there. I think my prediction is that Mark Drakeford is going to release a Christmas cheese board this year.
Oh my God.
I so hope that happens.
Be great.
Yeah.
It would be delicious.
Yeah. To the Churchill dog.
What are you doing this week, Mel?
Do you know what? You're not the only one that goes down the Senedd. I'm actually popping down there myself. I'm really committed to the pod.
Goes down the Senedd seems like a sort of euphemism for something. Going down the old Senedd.
Yeah, they could go down the Senedd. Proper Welsh nationalists call it going down the Senedd.
Once a year, Will goes down the Senedd. Once a year.
If you're a proper Welsh nationalist, you'd said our Senedd.
Yeah, exactly. My apologies. But I will be attending an event at the Senedd, is a better way of wording it, for Black History Month, which we haven't actually talked about on the pod yet. Obviously, it's October. And do you know what? I really limit myself purposefully to one Black History Month event a year because otherwise the wheels just fall off. It gets too much. And also, I'm very strict about if you don't kind of concentrate on equality and diversity for the rest of the year, you don't then get to put me in a photo.
If it's like lip service for the rest of the year, it's like...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't put me in the front of the photo just for October and they're like, back you fucking go.
Well, it's a lot of unpaid work for you to do for them to feel like they're ticking a couple of boxes, right?
For them to pat themselves on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
But to be fair, I've done the Senedd one a couple of years in a row now. It's very well organised. You get a lot of the members there and it's very educational, but without putting too much emotional labour on the black people who are attending. Because sometimes you get it in terms of, it was a bit like racism porn, where they're like, tell us about a really bad thing that's happened. So that everyone
Tell me how you had to struggle.
Yeah, so that everyone there can go, well, we would never do that. We would never do that,
Good whites.
Exactly.
Good whites.
Yeah. Whereas I do find, to be fair, the Senedd, I do find their events in the last couple of years have been really good.
That's good. That's really good.
In the next episode, come back and be like, it was horrendous. It was awful.
Listen to my struggles.
Exactly.
One of the members asked me if I was serving food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that is very, very common, actually. But yeah, it's so I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, report back.
We'll report back, but I'm really looking forward to it.
I think podcast-wise, it's nice for us to say when things are done well as well, because I think if you just criticize, it does undermine when you criticize. Because that's all, it's like your default setting. So
one thing that I'm kind of working with a couple of people on at the moment is lobbying, because at the moment, and I remember this at school, and every black kid in a school will remember when slavery was taught. It was our history. So everyone would turn to look at you to be like, this bit applies to you. And obviously only now, I think in the last year, maybe 2 years, that Black history is mandatory on the Welsh curriculum. And now we kind of need to flag that slavery isn't necessarily black history, it's white history.
Yeah.
And we do need to flag how Wales played their part. You know, there was like a farm in Dolgellau where they produced the majority of the clothing that was then shipped to America for slaves to wear.
Yeah.
We're not taught about that in Welsh school, you know, so those kind of things we do. If we are going to teach it, let's teach it properly.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that we can kind of have those constructive conversations. You know, we might skip over the fact that Wales did have a black leader. We did get rid of him in record time, but let's let that slide. That was kind of his doing. But you know, I think it's going to be a good event. But like you say, we need to talk about good things at the Senedd.
Yeah. He had a month as well, didn't he? Just as leader.
That's the Welsh Black History Month. What did he have? June, July? It's February in America.
Absolutely.
It's October in England, and we have Vaughan's month.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's great. It's important that we talk about when they do well.
Yeah.
And then
another thing the Welsh government have done well, to be fair to them, is their record on recycling. Now, people will point to things that there are issues with this, but actually the evidence is that actually Wales is pretty high up the world rankings when it comes to how much we recycle. Second. Who was top? Do you remember?
Really good question. I think it's Austria. And then it's Taiwan. Recently I hosted the local area recycling awards.
Oh, we love a corporate.
This is the big one.
That fee was good, I
For
bet.
the second year on the bounce, they even recycle their hosts. That is a joke that I made at the event.
Of course you did.
And we talked about the Welsh thing a lot. It's big. It's big for our country. Where I think my joke was it's Austria first, Wales second, then Taiwan in third, and I said suck it, Taiwan. England are 11th.
Brilliant.
No joke there. Just wanted to point it out.
Well, that's why. So Wales actually introduced legislation recently, which meant that businesses also had to segregate all of their waste, so they couldn't just have a general recycling one with all the plastics and cans and bottles and everything. They had to be separate. And the reason is actually it's really, really expensive to separate waste. Sure. So if there's a degree of contamination in waste, I can't believe we're doing a podcast on waste, but it means essentially once there's a particular level of contamination, so people don't swill out their yogurt pots and stuff, they just end up burning it. So actually it's a big step towards that. So that's good. We will actually this has been recorded before the budget comes out, but
yes.
They presuming that Wales hasn't been given its HS2 money, it won't have done. I'm pretty confident.
Imagine
that.
Plot twist, though.
You quite like Budget Day, don't you?
I find it, I'm a bit, I like the nerdery of it all. I like the history of it all. I think it's still very silly that in the Commons there's someone called Black Rod and we have to do all that when Parliament starts and all that kind of stuff. I think, what's those little silly bits about the budget that the Chancellor's allowed to drink whiskey? Whilst they're doing it, and I think it's only been the last maybe 4 or 5 chancellors who've decided not to do that. Well, but even in the early 90s, I think they were having a wee dram.
It's when they come out and they hold that fucking stupid briefcase and they're like, "Here is the budget," and it's like, it's not, is it? They should
it's not in there.
Hold up a pen drive.
George Osborne would spread us so weirdly wide.
They loved it, didn't they?
That power stand,
the Tory power stand.
But it wasn't power. It was not powerful. No, I don't think anybody looked at that and thought he's a man with
He's
power.
a powerful man. Look at that low centre of gravity.
It's like how a man with a bad back would limbo.
Yes.
Sure.
You just get your legs as wide as you can so you're lower.
Yeah.
So what's in the box? Not to sound like Gwyneth Paltrow in Seven, but I haven't seen it.
Not to sound like a terrible political journalist. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. If you do know, write in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I imagine it's ceremonial at this point, isn't it? And I do think there is a place for pomp and ceremony. I think there is a place where if it gets people engaged, at the end of the day, as long as the politics comes first.
Sure.
If it does, it's a thing that, kids can be like, that's Black Rod. It's something that they go on.
No, it just...
What joke do you want to make, Robin?
I love the idea. No, none of the jokes that you're thinking. I just love the idea that kids are really Black Rod, they've got like he's a wrestler. It feels like he's a wrestler.
Yeah.
T-shirts with Black Rod.
You hear dong, the lights go out and they walk in.
I want to come dressed as Black Rod.
It's interesting with the traditions, isn't it? Because actually there's a lot to be said for traditions in politics and conventions and stuff like that, because it enables there to be norms of etiquette and stuff like that, and that can be useful, but it also can mean that things get so entrenched. The idea that both sides of the Commons, it's 2 sword lengths apart. Like, get a fucking grip. Like, it's just so like antiquated. But anyway,
Keir Starmer holding a sword is something I never need to see. Like when I try, like
holding
back
Black
in the
Rod.
day, or Black Rod. Like back in the day, our leaders used to lead us into battle, and Keir Starmer leading us into battle, and Ed Morgan leading us into battle.
He probably would if it was
not
like
good to see it,
if it was like corporate hospitality.
Yeah, exactly.
The interesting thing, so every year there's a budget. When I was a reporter at Wales Online, we'd watch the budget and we'd do a live blog on it. And an announcement would be made where the Chancellor would say, we are going to spend X amount more on health or on whatever. And we then have to try and work out what that means for Wales. Because when they talk about we're going to spend X amount on the NHS, that should mean a Barnett consequential. So Wales is funded through the Barnett formula, which means essentially when money's spent in England, Wales will get a roughly, we can go into the Barnett formula in more detail, we're not going to today, but Wales will get roughly a population equivalent. So if 100 million spent on the Welsh NHS, Wales will get about 5 million. That's how it kind of works. But we try and work out what it means, and it's really hard because say the Chancellor says we're going to spend 100 million on the NHS. Obviously, that actually in grand schemes that isn't very much. But if they said we're going to spend 100 billion, that is quite a big deal. And we think, right, how much money is Wales going to get from that? And you might think, well, you just apply the percentage to it. But there's so many things to consider. Like, is that new money? If they're just moving money from the education budget, which is also devolved, and putting it in health, that's actually not new money for Wales. So that's no additional spending. And this actually is a bit of a problem because you'll ring the Welsh government and say, do you know what that means? And they will say, we don't know, because the Welsh government find out what is in the budget at the same time as me, you, everyone watching on YouTube, all that sort of stuff, which actually is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, that really, really is.
Yeah, because how does that make sense? Because ultimately, regardless of party politics, these governments have to work together. They have to. Whichever way there is kind of a ladder and all of this, they should have to work together. Them finding out like we do.
I mean, imagine being part of government or part of the OBR during the Kwarteng budget when the OBR didn't even get it.
Yeah.
Well, they're the ones who should be getting it.
Do you remember what you're actually referring to there is when a deep state conspiracy brought down Liz Truss?
Sorry.
That's what you
Absolutely, yeah.
We should get her on.
She'll do anything. This year.
Did she?
Yeah,
she did.
Yeah, there was a point where it was not going great for me, and I was like, fucking Liz Truss is selling out. And I'm not.
I love that for her.
Yeah.
The other thing with the budget as well, because the Welsh government don't know what they're going to be getting and they have very, very little input into what goes into the budget. How can you long-term plan? Wales has got some really deep entrenched issues and you don't know what money you're getting year to year. And the other problem with how it's all funded is everything is done through the lens of what England needs. So the Chancellor looks and goes, well, the English NHS might be doing quite well, so we probably don't need to put money into that. But actually, Wales has got a sicker population, so if they were doing it for Wales, they would put more money in. So essentially, everything in terms of spending for the UK is done on the basis of essentially what England needs. And that is just a terrible, terrible way to run a country. There was a recent Senedd committee report, the Finance Committee did a report and said, this just doesn't work. This is a terrible way to run a country. And they've argued that there needs to be a lot more interactions between the Welsh government and the UK government in the run-up to the budget to work out what is needed. It also stopped things like, the HS2 stuff that we talked about last week happening, where things that are specifically for England get defined as also Wales. It's crazy, isn't it, when you really consider that in Wales, we don't know what money we're going to get until just before.
But I can't see that. I don't know if this is a bleak thing to say. I can't see that changing. Why? Like, if that decision is in the hands of the UK government, they're not going to go, no, now you can see our homework. They're not going to do that, right?
No, it doesn't even enter their mind.
No.
Enter their mind, really. What they might do is it's a Labour government in Westminster and a Labour government in Cardiff. They might say, well, from a comms perspective, this is what we're going to announce, so you need to say how good this is. Yeah. But from an actual perspective, actually running the country, it isn't going to change. And it's incredibly, incredibly depressing. Like, if the UK, if we're going to treat that as a unified 4 nations, you kind of have to treat the nations with, people would suggest, more respect than they get at the moment.
It's not indicative of healthy devolution, though, is it?
No.
It kind of makes the case that devolution doesn't work, and that you kind of got to take, both feet in or both feet out. because at the moment, like this kind of half-in thing, like you say, it's great in theory, but when they're unable to kind of work together as equals, it's like scenarios like this where you kind of go, is devolution working, or is it a bit of a keep them happy? Look, it's kind of symbolic. It kind of goes, it looks like they're doing something, but realistically, if a country doesn't know how much money it's going to get, is it devolved?
Well, devolution as a plan was made up on the back of a fag packet. A lot of it was because Scottish devolution is different to Welsh devolution, and it just doesn't make sense in terms of how you do it. But the problem is, I actually think devolution, this is just kind of my personal opinion, I think devolution should be a vehicle for making Wales better and work better and be more prosperous for the people who live here. And at the moment, I think you can make the argument that isn't working. But that is also like driving through the mountains, your car breaks down, and then you getting out and going, well, I need to get rid of cars. Cars don't work. What you need is an actual better car. You need a better and more effective government in Wales, and you need the system to be set up better to make it work, in my view. And it just, I mean, a good government in Wales would struggle at the moment with how it's set up, because they just don't know what they're going to get. They don't know where the money's coming from. And they kind of have to go cap in hand to Westminster and say, a lot of people are dying on waiting lists at the moment. Any chance you can chuck us some cash?
Yeah, do you think that's sort of... Because a bit of me feels for the government for that reason, and in terms of why is the NHS failing in Wales? Obviously because of the financial impact we've got and our population being sicker and there being more poverty here. But it can't just stop at that. Like, UK can't do it. They're not giving it. You're not giving us enough money, so they are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And it does feel like this year, or next year rather, is going to be. Potentially they're going to get their comeuppance.
The reason the SNP was so successful for a long time in Scotland is because they visibly said, they could visibly seem to be standing up for Scotland. They could say this isn't good enough. Now, you can make a pretty strong argument that the SNP's record in Scotland isn't that good, but they at least visibly did seem to stand up for Wales. Can I use prisons as an example of how devolution doesn't work?
Please do, yeah.
So a report, there's a guy called Rob Jones who works at Cardiff University's Wales Governance Centre. Look him up. He does some amazing work looking at the prison system, because prisons aren't devolved. Most prisons in Wales are run by the UK government, apart from one Park prison, which is run by G4S. So Welsh prisons, it's worth looking into. It's carnage in there at the moment. So a new report by this guy Rob has found that Park Prison in Bridgend has had the steepest rises in incidents. So self-harm incidents of prisoners have gone up 113%. Self-harm incidents requiring hospital treatment has gone up 190%. Wow. It is crazy, but prisons aren't devolved, and we saw in COVID how the devolution system kind of creates problems, because although prisons aren't devolved, healthcare in prisons is. So prisons were a real risk during COVID. And then we had the fact that the healthcare in the prisons was run by the Welsh government, but the prisons were run by the UK government. And it was such a hard thing to manage. But I think that just illustrates how poorly designed the current system is. And it's just not logical. It just doesn't make sense. As I say, if you were good at running a country, this would be hard, let alone if you're not.
Yeah. The thing is, though, with the mix of what is devolved and what isn't, and what is devolved, the kind of the common sense there almost would lean towards, well, surely then it would make more sense for that to be devolved so that it can be controlled more centrally. But then where does that stop?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You'd get to everything, wouldn't you?
Yeah, until it comes down to money.
Yeah.
Right? It's the treasury, right? That's where all of these decisions need some input. So until that bit gets devolved, and at that point, that's basically independence.
And
exactly.
And I think, this guy did wrote a really good book a few years ago, and the problem is sometimes it's really hard to get Welsh specific data. So he did lots of freedom of information requests, and he found that people in Wales, if they went to court and were convicted, were more likely to be given a prison sentence than people in England. And actually, understanding why that is almost impossible if you don't have specific Welsh data.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to say that devolution in the current system doesn't necessarily work well, but if you're going to change things, you need to look at the whole of the UK, and you need to think, right, how do we make this thing work as good as we can? And I don't think at the moment they've managed to do that. I think prisons is just one example of this. We could talk about so many other things as well.
Yeah. And also, I know we touched on it a couple of episodes ago in terms of independence, and people with their heart might want it, but there might be people who are very concerned as to what that would look like because they look at the devolved areas at the moment, and those devolved areas largely are failing quite badly. You know, education not doing well, the health service not doing well, and we can point the finger, but then does it all at the end of the day come down to the fact they can't financially plan?
Is it because they've put all of their energy into recycling?
Yeah, they're so fucking
Is
good
all
at
of the focus
recycling.
just we're going to just recycle?
Yeah.
We're going to make that our thing?
Yeah, they branded themselves as the recyclers of the world.
The recyclers of the world.
Recyclers.
Yeah.
So Mark Drakeford made a point about kind of the evolution because he wants to see justice devolved because at the moment the justice system isn't devolved in Wales. And his point was, because he used to be a youth worker quite a long time ago, and his point was this: I'm going to try and do the Drake. I'm not going to do that.
It's like he was there.
Here, would you like some cheese? And his point was, if you're a youth worker, all the things that you will use to do your job and all the public agencies you will interface with, like housing, it's devolved. Schools, education, devolved. All that sort of stuff that you would work with. Social services, devolved. But then you've got the justice system, which isn't devolved. So it makes doing like joined up policy really, really hard because you might have, what we want to do with a young person who goes into, might fall into criminality. Is this how we want to manage them? This is how we want to get them out of it. But you don't control like a massive part of that. So it's very hard to do joined up thinking, especially when, as we said earlier, the UK government, the Welsh government, the UK government especially doesn't consider Wales when it is making those decisions. And it's just a bit of a mess.
Yeah, but it's like we were saying, like, once, you think, okay, we'll devolve that, and we'll devolve the next bit. And it's like drip feeding independence until one day you go, are we independent? Is that what's happened?
Yeah. Especially when the cooperation agreement was in and Labour implied it. It felt like, we're on the slide now. We're on the slippery slide going down into this.
Yeah.
Or up. And it's interesting. At the moment, we're in this halfway house where it feels like parents who are in charge of teenagers. Like, no, you can drink in the house. See if you can behave there, and then maybe
We just want you to stay under our roof.
Yeah.
We'd prefer that.
Absolutely.
But you're not going out.
Yeah.
So we've had quite a few questions actually, and I know we said we want really like localized questions, and they've been local. They've been very local, so I'll give you that.
My bedroom needs tidying.
Exactly, like do it yourself, mate. But one that came up, well, do you know what? An overarching theme has been council cuts, and one that kind of came up that really stood out to me because I am #ABBA bias. But one that came up was the fact that the Ceredigion Council have moving to ban parking on the prom in Aberystwyth, or to start charging for it.
Okay.
And
so if someone wants to park on the promenade in Aber, they now have to pay.
They now have to pay for it, where it was free before. And it's already limited as it is, you know, but they'd have to start paying for it. And the problem with that is, and it's heartbreaking to see that since especially COVID, businesses are struggling so hard. I'm sure this is the same in many towns across Wales. Like they're really struggling, and they were hoping that local government would be doing everything they can to support those local businesses, making it accessible to come into town instead of ordering online or something like that. And that actually this will just make it even worse. So I suppose there's a question here about this specific instance, but also generally councils making cut or making money other places where they can to the detriment of local business. And is this indicative of the fact that they also have little to no money?
Yeah, I mean, the local authorities like councils have been hit ever since austerity. I mean, the Conservatives in 2012, 2013, they balanced a lot of austerity on the backs of local authorities. It was massively, massively cut, and obviously in turn that gets passed on into Wales, although it is devolved. But I think the thing people, when they talk about council funding, it feels quite parochial and a bit niche. But actually, the things that make the most difference to someone's actual lives are quite a lot of the time council services, aren't they?
100%. And there is like the turnout for voting for councillors is so low in council elections, but they are the ones that make the most direct difference to the local
Road
population.
spins, the day-to-day, right?
Yeah,
100%. I think so. With councils, they've got certain services that they have to deliver, like care for young people and stuff like that. So if people are in care, that's dealt with by local authorities. You've got education, so they manage schools, have responsibilities for those budgets, and they can't. There are things they have to do, and things like parks and stuff. That's when you start to see that they get, well, we've got a choice between, do we have this park, this swimming pool, which are great to have, and also we've got these things that we have to do, and that's at the kind of the point they're at. And that point on the prom and charging, they are using every single avenue they can to try and get more money and to be able to balance these budgets. And there's a real conversation to be had about what we use our high streets for now, because really they're not going to be the big shopping centres anymore, because so much is bought online. It's just so much easier to buy things online, and younger people are much more likely to buy online. And you want these these town centres to thrive, but the way you're going to have to do it, it's got to be things like food, but you can also use it advantageously. You could have more art, community spaces, stuff like that. But doing that and making that shift is tricky, especially if you're then going, well, actually, we're going to charge people loads to use any of the businesses that are still there and trying to desperately make it work.
Yeah, I mean, where I live in Cardiff, there was a big thing, but there's like a village high street and there's like a car park behind there. And I think it's like 1 hour free parking in that car park, and then you have to pay after that. And that feels like a sort of halfway house, because I think they did try and sort of think, oh, it's now going to be... Oh, it might have gone down from 2 hours free, and on the local Facebook groups, it was like, all the shops are going to close because of you. Of course, councils need to get money somehow, don't they? But I think, there was I don't know if it was, I think it was a UK-based thing, but trying to use empty shops for housing as well, and that being floated as an idea. And it feels like, who would want to live on a busy high street? Young professionals who are in house shares and want to get their own place. Like it feels like we should be smart about using this real estate, right?
Well, you can even go into things like business rates, because one of the reasons it's really hard for high street shops is they have to pay business rates.
Yeah. Well, I know when the Conservatives were in UK government, that one of the big things that they used to batter Wales was like, look how low our business rates are. Look at all the businesses that are being choked by the Welsh government and their business rates, which, there was multiple factors that go into it. But I know that was a big, there was a big reason why there was Conservative support in Wales from business owners because of the business rates.
I mean, I'm sort of so surprised every time like a new thing opens like in my area, because it's so difficult to do, and like the majority of shops that are closing down now will become a charity shop or it'll be a vape superstar. Exactly. And if Cardiff, where we live, is Queen Street is predominantly now like everything is just like vape,
and that's even worse. I mean, if you're in like a small town and you lose your only bank, that is a huge issue across, and especially because rural Wales is much more likely to be older and much more likely to rely on those services. It's pretty catastrophic. I mean, I spoke to council leaders in the run up to the general election who were saying to me, well, we're hoping that Labour will win, and then there might be some money coming down the chute. And I know that a lot of them are desperately looking for the budget, which will have come out by the time this is out, will have been announced by the time this is out. And they are desperate for something. And I think they're going to be pretty disappointed, especially in the short term.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's really, really hard. And the thing is, people, I think they need to engage with their local council when it comes to like choosing who is going to be representing you, because that is, like we said, the lowest turnout, but has the most direct effect. And but it is, the budget. It will be really good to look back on it when it's actually happened to see if there's any support there. But like you say, it's not looking promising.
Those consultations that councils put out, if barely anyone responds to them sometimes, and if you respond, you can actually make quite a difference to those responses. Obviously, sometimes it's which of these things do you want us to cut, which is obviously.
But also, those councillors tend to be really local people from those wards. You know, so they know what will actually directly affect. I know we've had a question that we can look at from another episode about a local theatre that's being closed. Your MS might not necessarily be in tune with that, but your local councillor will be and will know, how that's going to affect the local community on a human level.
Would you ever be a councillor?
No, I'm too much of a people pleaser. I think I'd say yes to everything and put my council would be bankrupt immediately. I feel like we should start like a little board game, like a sort of Monopoly-esque council board game.
Yeah. There probably is one out there, isn't there?
You have landed on the vape shop.
Exactly. Well, in Aberdeen, there's a loads and loads. The high street now is just charity shops, more or less. Because am I right? They don't have to pay business rates. I could be wrong.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, there is something they don't have to pay that businesses do.
This charity shop is selling fried chicken. How do they get away with that? I've smashed that.
Exactly. Fair play. You know, dropping off your donation of it as well.
I'll have a Macmillan burger, please. All right.
That's really good.
Yeah,
That was really good.
Quite good. Quite quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of in answer to that question, yes, it's incredibly hard for businesses on the who are in towns and city centres. Councils are trying to get as much money as they can, and it's God, this has been a bit miserable, hasn't it?
I know, but we try to add the light relief.
Yeah, and
Recycling.
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
But we were talking about the sort of the pomp and ceremony of politics, and we've gone all the way down to sort of like, voting, goes for council consultations, and I think this is it, right?
We've done the whole scale.
It's all part
We've
of everything.
completed politics today, guys.
So if people listening have got questions or things they'd like us to do a deep dive into, I know we got a lot of responses asking us to do more on independence, so we'll probably do that in the future as a standalone piece. I got accused of being a Welsh nationalist stooge and a unionist plant on social media.
Both of them.
I know.
Brilliant.
I know.
Good going.
You were plant, I was stooge,
Yeah,
right?
that was us.
Yeah, nice,
See
nice.
which one winds them up more.
Why don't you just change? You just use your existing emails. You don't need to create other email addresses. It's,
I handed a letter. That's what I did.
Just through his letterbox.
cool.
Brilliant. Well, who are we?
Indeed, I'm Robin Morgan.
Great, that's it. Just like Beyonce. Robin.
Yeah. I'm Robin. The only Robin.
What do you do for a living when you're not podcasting?
Oh, I just sort of vibe. I'm a comedian, writer, actor. I've acted in something. I've acted in one thing.
You acted as a spad. How apt to this?
I acted in the Boris Johnson drama This England, where Sir Kenneth Branagh played Boris.
I could see you actually. You've got a kind of spaddy look.
You look like a proper Tory boy
honestly,
spad.
on the first day of filming, one of the producers came up and he said, "We've hired you obviously because you're a brilliant actor." I was like, "I've not acted in anything. This is all bullshit." And he goes, "But also because you had like a look, and we're looking for we need loads of extras. So if any of your friends," and I was like, "I'm not just friends with people who look like me. I mean, I am. Like so many of my friends are just like white men with bad vision. That's essentially my friends." But yeah, no, proper spaddy. Every time I've said I've played a Tory spad, they're like, "Oh yeah, I can see that."
Yeah.
That sounds about
it's
right.
like your video was when you went, "Oh, I look like a young Keir Starmer."
Yeah.
Everyone goes, "Oh,
yeah.
actually."
I don't know why I do it. I create a rod for my own back, don't I?
Do you know what? I've got a quip, and I've only just started throwing it in about my dad electrocuting me with an electric fence. It's a big. You got to come see a show, and I go, "That's why my hair's so frizzy, right?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not the laugh I wanted.
It's when we use comedy as a defense mechanism, but then we're trying to get so far ahead, like 3D chess of going, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I expected everyone to go, "No." Everyone was like, "Yeah," it's a really big laugh.
Yeah, that's
I've got to
annoying,
keep fucking
isn't it?
doing it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, who are you?
My name's Will Hayward. I'm a journalist, author, and now podcaster, and I write the Will Hayward newsletter, which looks at Welsh political issues.
Absolutely. And we want more questions. So if you've got questions, let us know. We also want you to like, share, subscribe, comment, even hateful things.
Has Mel said goodbye yet?
No,
Oh my gosh.
In Black History Month as well.
So sorry.
Imagine how much we ignore you the rest of the year.
I'm so sorry.
I'm Mel Owens.
So I'm Will Hayward.
Oh, horrid.
I am Mel Owen. I am a comedian, now an author as well.
Yes.
Thank
Congratulations,
Wickedness.
Diane.
Thank you so much.
What is your book called?
Oedolyn-ish. So it is a Welsh language book about the most important lessons I've learnt before turning 30. Yes, so I'm very excited it's out there. If you speak Welsh, please buy it. It would do great for my ego.
I mean, if you
Please.
don't speak Welsh, buy it.
Please, literally just buy it. It'll be great. And yeah, I think that's all I do. Writer? Yeah.
Everything.
Podcaster?
Yeah.
All of it.
Amazing. Thanks for listening, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.